Absence is not measured by the passing of time, but by the emptiness it leaves behind. Have you ever felt that strange silence, the one that appears when you are no longer there? For a woman, your absence is never neutral. It becomes a mirror, revealing emotions sometimes hidden, sometimes unexpected. But have you ever truly imagined what she feels, when your footsteps no longer echo in her daily life? 1. The emotional wave. At first, absence is like a wave. It does not crash violently. It doesn't announce itself with thunder. Instead, it arrives softly rippling, subtle yet undeniable. It begins in the quiet corners of her heart, as if the ocean of her emotions has suddenly been disturbed by the smallest pebble of silence. She notices it in the stillness of a room, in the empty chair across from her, in the unanswered space where your presence usually lingers. It is not yet pain. It is not even longing. It is the faint whisper of a question, almost fragile, almost invisible. Does he think of me? This question is the first ripple. And ripples never stay small. They grow, they expand, they transform into waves. The mind, when left without presence, fills the gaps with memory. For her, nostalgia begins to weave its threads through the fabric of the present. Suddenly, the ordinary becomes alive with meaning. A song drifts through the radio, and it is not just a song, it is your song, or at least it feels that way. A scent in the hallway, the smell of coffee or cologne, becomes an echo of you. Even a simple phrase overheard in conversation carries the resonance of your voice. In these fleeting fragments, your absence becomes its own kind of presence, paradoxical and haunting. It is said that absence sharpens love the way the wind sharpens fire, extinguishing the weak flames, but feeding the strong ones until they burn brighter. And so, in these moments, her heart becomes the stage where absence and memory perform their intricate dance. Modern psychology calls this phenomenon emotional anchoring. Every shared experience becomes a mental hook, a point of reference that keeps you alive in her thoughts even when you are far away. That restaurant where you laughed too loudly. That park bench where silence between you felt like music. That text message that arrived at just the right time. Each memory is not static, it breathes. It comes alive whenever absence awakens it. This is why even the smallest trigger can unleash a flood of feeling. The human brain is wired for connection. It resists the void by filling it with traces of the beloved. So when you are gone, you are not truly gone. You live on in the smallest details, the overlooked moments, the invisible fingerprints you left on her days. But there is also turbulence within this wave. Absence does not only bring warmth, it also carries a shadow. The same memories that soothe can also sting. What begins as nostalgia can tilt into worry. Does he feel the same? Has he forgotten me already? The mind, deprived of reassurance, sometimes turns against itself. And yet, it is in this very turbulence that the depth of feeling is revealed. If your absence were meaningless, there would be no wave, no ripple, no echo. The fact that she feels the tremor of your absence is proof of the significance you hold. Picture her walking through a crowded street. Hundreds of faces, voices, and sounds surround her. Yet, amidst this noise, one thought lingers. If he were here, what would he say? What would he notice? Absence has the power to filter the world through the lens of your presence. She does not simply live her moments alone, she lives them twice. Once as herself and once in the shadow of what you might have been if you were there beside her. This is the emotional wave. It swells quietly, invisibly, but irresistibly. It is not dramatic at first, it does not demand attention. But like the tide, it grows stronger with time, pulling at her heart, shaping her thoughts, carving paths in the shore of her memory. Philosophers have long reflected on the strange beauty of absence. The Persian poet Hafez once wrote, "I wish I could show you, when you are lonely or in darkness, the astonishing light of your own being." Absence becomes that darkness, but also the canvas on which her own emotions are illuminated. It is in missing you that she realizes the depth of what you mean. And here lies the paradox. Absence hurts, but it also heals. It aches, but it also affirms. For without absence, presence would lose its value. Without distance, closeness would be taken for granted. So, when the wave rises in her, when a scent or a song or a fleeting memory stirs her heart, it is not only longing that she feels. It is recognition. Recognition that what she has with you is something that matters enough to leave an imprint. Something that cannot be erased by silence or time. Absence then is not emptiness. It is a living wave always in motion. It reminds her, again and again, that you are not just someone who occupies space, you are someone who occupies meaning. And meaning lingers even when you are not there. 2. The inner struggle. Human relationships are rarely simple. At the heart of every connection lies a paradox. the longing to merge with another and the simultaneous fear of losing oneself in the process. When absence enters the picture, this paradox becomes sharper, clearer, almost unavoidable. It is in your absence that a woman begins to wrestle with the two invisible forces pulling her in opposite directions: her desire for closeness and her fear of dependence. The first force is primal, instinctive, and deeply human. The desire for closeness is not weakness. It is woven into the very fabric of survival. From the moment we are born, our nervous systems are calibrated to seek warmth, safety, and presence. Touch, voice, and gaze are not luxuries, they are lifelines. To want connection is to be human. To need affection is not an error but a design. In your absence, this need awakens with new intensity. The void you leave behind becomes a silent reminder of the bonds that give life its meaning. But parallel to this longing lies its shadow, the fear of dependence. It whispers questions that unsettle the mind. If I lean too much on him, do I risk losing myself? If his presence defines my happiness, what happens when he is not here? This fear is not irrational. It stems from the deep human drive for autonomy, for individuality, for the ability to stand whole without another's presence. Dependence threatens freedom, and freedom is a force no one can fully abandon. Thus, within her, two voices rise. One says, I need him, his presence calms me, his absence shakes me. The other replies, but do I not also need myself? If I collapse without him, who am I truly? These two voices do not simply contradict each other, they coexist, they collide, they create tension that defines the inner struggle of absence. Philosophy has long grappled with this paradox. Aristotle famously declared, man is a social animal. He argued that our essence is fulfilled in community, in bonds, in shared existence. Yet centuries later, existentialist thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir would insist that freedom is the highest human calling, and that dependence on another risks undermining our authentic existence. Your absence places her right at the crossroads of these two philosophies. On one hand, she feels the weight of Aristotle's truth, that life without connection feels diminished, less vivid, less whole. On the other, she hears Sartre's challenge, that she must never lose herself entirely in the presence of another, for the responsibility of existence lies first with the individual. And so the question arises, is your absence a wound or an opportunity? Psychology provides its own lens. Attachment theory tells us that humans form emotional bonds that are as necessary as food and shelter. To be securely attached means to find safety in another's presence without losing independence in their absence. Yet not all attachments are secure. For some, absence awakens deep anxiety, the fear of abandonment, the terror that closeness will not return. For others, it stirs avoidance, the urge to minimize the importance of the relationship in order to protect one's autonomy. Within this spectrum, a woman's experience of your absence becomes a mirror reflecting her attachment style, her history, her inner wiring. The desire for closeness may flood her with tenderness, while the fear of dependence may drive her toward distance, self-preservation, or even denial of her own feelings. The struggle is not simply about you, it is about the entire architecture of her inner world. Consider this, when you are absent, she is not only missing you, she is also confronting herself. The silence you leave does not just echo, it interrogates. Who am I when he is not here? Do I stand steady or do I collapse into emptiness? Do I use his presence as an anchor or as a crutch? These questions are not always comfortable, but they are necessary. For it is through this confrontation that individuality is rediscovered, even reforged. Aristotle's claim, that we are social animals, remains true. Yet absence reveals that we are also solitary beings, tasked with the work of building our own foundations. A woman in your absence must reconcile the paradox: to cherish closeness without being enslaved by it, to embrace autonomy without erasing connection. Some would argue that absence is nothing but a wound, that it tears at the heart, leaves scars, exposes fragility. But there is another view, one more nuanced. Absence is also a teacher. It teaches resilience, the art of standing strong in solitude. It teaches discernment, the ability to see which bonds are genuine and which are illusions. And most importantly, it teaches balance, the recognition that love is not about erasing oneself in another, but about weaving two lives together without dissolving either one. So, is your absence a void to be filled, or a force that pushes her to grow stronger? The answer may be both. The ache of missing you is real, it is the wound. But the silence it creates also opens a space where she can rediscover her own essence. It is the opportunity. And this is the essence of the inner struggle, not to choose one side or the other, but to live within the tension. To feel both the ache of longing and the strength of independence. To recognize that your presence enriches her, but your absence does not erase her. It is in this paradoxical dance between closeness and freedom, longing and independence that the true depth of human connection is revealed. 3. The mirror of waiting. She stands before the mirror. The glass reflects her face, her eyes, her body, but what she is really searching for lies beyond the surface. It is not her own reflection that captivates her. It is the invisible presence of you, the trace of you she wishes to find in the shape of her smile, in the depth of her gaze. The mirror becomes more than a piece of glass. It becomes a portal, a silent witness to her inner world. Each time she looks, she is not only seeing herself, she is measuring the space you occupy within her. Does her face glow with the memory of you, or does it dim with the shadow of your absence? The waiting turns the act of looking into a ritual of longing. Every moment of waiting stretches into its own private universe. Minutes are no longer just minutes. They become chambers of reflection, spaces where thought and feeling intertwine. Sometimes these moments are tinted with longing. She sits by the window watching people walk by, and imagines what it would be like if you were beside her. The laughter she hears from others reminds her of yours. The empty seat across from her is not just empty, it is full of the weight of your absence. In such moments, time does not move forward. It circles around memory, replaying the same scenes over and over. But waiting is not only painted with sorrow. At times, gratitude floods in, soft and unexpected. She recalls the moments you've already shared, the warmth of your hand, the softness of your words, the safety of your presence. These memories are not wounds but treasures. And in treasuring them, she realizes that waiting is not simply about what is missing. It is also about appreciating what has been. This duality, the ache of longing and the sweetness of gratitude, creates a rhythm within her. She oscillates between yearning for what is absent and cherishing what is remembered. It is an inner dance, delicate and profound, performed in the silence of waiting. Rumi once wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." This paradox holds true in her waiting. The wound of your absence opens her to truths she would not have discovered otherwise. It is in missing you that she realizes how deeply she feels. It is in her solitude that she uncovers the contours of her own heart. Through absence, she discovers that what she feels is not only about you. Yes, you are the catalyst, the spark, but the emotions themselves are hers. The longing, the gratitude, the tenderness, the vulnerability, they arise from within her. Waiting becomes a mirror not only of you but of herself. This is the hidden gift of absence. It reveals the self through the other. In waiting for you, she learns about herself. Imagine her brushing her hair, pausing for a moment to glance into the mirror. She wonders, do I look different when he's not here? Do my eyes lose their light without him? Or do I shine in ways he cannot see? These questions are not vanity, they are explorations of identity. The mirror becomes a canvas on which she contemplates who she is when she is alone, and who she is when she is with you. Waiting deepens this contemplation. Each passing hour forces her to confront her own reflection, not just physically but emotionally. She asks herself, what does his presence mean to me? And what does my waiting reveal about my own strength, my own needs, my own capacity to love? It is in these quiet, unseen moments that transformation begins. Waiting is often dismissed as passive, as nothing more than the act of enduring time. But in truth, waiting can be profoundly active. It is the act of turning inward, of listening to the whispers of one's own soul. In the silence of absence, the noise of the outside world fades, and the inner world grows louder. She begins to notice details she once overlooked. The cadence of her breath, the way her emotions rise and fall, the subtle shifts in her inner landscape. Waiting becomes meditation. It becomes a mirror reflecting the depth of her inner life. And in this mirror she does not only see you, she sees herself becoming. Yet the mirror of waiting is not always gentle. At times, it confronts her with difficult truths. Perhaps she notices her dependence more than she expected. Perhaps she realizes that her happiness feels too tightly bound to your presence. Such realizations sting, but they also awaken. They urge her to cultivate strength, to remember that she, too, is whole on her own. Other times, the mirror shows her resilience. She realizes she can endure the silence, that her identity does not vanish when you are not there. She feels the paradox. She misses you deeply, but she also stands firmly as herself. The mirror reveals both her vulnerability and her strength. Through all of this, waiting becomes an act of love, but also an act of self-discovery. Each moment of absence is both a reminder of you and a revelation of her own essence. The mirror reflects not only the contours of her longing, but the contours of her soul. And so she waits, not idly, not blindly, but consciously, intimately. She waits in a way that transforms her, that deepens her understanding, that brings her closer not only to you but to herself. Because in the end, the mirror of waiting does not only show what is missing, it shows what is already within. 3. The transformation. Your absence becomes a catalyst. It is not merely an empty space, not merely a void to be endured, it becomes the fire through which she is reshaped. While the first sting of missing you may feel like loss, something remarkable happens beneath the surface. She begins to transform. At first, this transformation is subtle, almost imperceptible. The waiting teaches her patience. She realizes that emotions do not always demand immediate resolution. She cannot control when you return, when you call, or when the silence ends. What she can control is how she meets the silence. Patience, then, becomes her quiet strength, the ability to hold longing without letting it consume her. But patience alone is not the end of her journey. With each passing day, she discovers strength she did not know she possessed. Strength to stand tall in solitude. Strength to handle her emotions with grace. Strength to nurture herself rather than collapse into despair. Your absence challenges her, yes, but it also invites her to expand beyond what she thought possible. This is where the alchemy takes place. Alchemy, the ancient art of transforming base metals into gold, becomes the perfect metaphor for what absence can do to the human heart. Longing, once seen as weakness, begins to transform into creative energy. The ache of missing you does not destroy her, it pushes her toward growth. Some women turn this energy into art, writing, painting, music, journaling. Others turn it inward, exploring meditation, personal development, or spiritual practices. Still others channel it into action, into building careers, dreams, and ambitions that had once been left dormant. What might have been an emptiness becomes a source of creation. The silence you leave behind becomes a canvas on which she paints her growth. In this transformation she also learns something even greater: self-love. Absence confronts her with a truth: she cannot always rely on another's presence to complete her. To thrive, she must also cultivate love for herself. This does not mean she loves you less, it means she deepens her capacity to love authentically. Self-love allows her to miss you without losing herself. It allows her to cherish you while also cherishing her own existence. She begins to understand that her worth is not defined solely by your attention, but also by the light she carries within. And in discovering that light, she realizes she can stand with or without you, not because she doesn't care, but because she has grown strong enough to hold both her love for you and her love for herself. This is the hidden gift of absence. It reveals what you truly mean to her. Not through words, not through promises, but through transformation. If she grows stronger, more patient, more self-loving in your absence, it means your presence has weight. It means you matter enough to spark change, to awaken parts of her she may never have explored otherwise. And this brings us to the heart of the matter. In reality, what a woman feels in your absence is not simply the ache of missing you. It is revelation. Revelation of the depth of her emotions. Revelation of the strength she holds within. Revelation of the meaning you carry in her life. Your absence is not emptiness. It is a mirror of value, a measure of impact. The more she transforms in your absence, the more it speaks to the significance of your presence. And you? Have you ever stopped to consider the weight of your presence in her life? It is easy to underestimate this. To think of your presence as ordinary, as something given. But your presence is not neutral, it is powerful. It carries the ability to calm storms, to bring light, to inspire hope. And just as your absence transforms her, your presence also transforms her, in ways you may not even realize. When you walk into a room, her energy shifts. When you speak, her thoughts adjust. When you touch her, her emotions awaken. Your presence carries weight, far more than you may ever imagine. The beauty of this transformation is that it is not one-sided. As she grows in your absence, she also holds up a mirror for you. She shows you the profound effect you have, the gravity you hold. She challenges you to reflect. Are you conscious of the role you play? Do you honor the value of your presence? Do you carry it with intention, with awareness, with gratitude? Because in the end, absence does not only transform her. It transforms you as well, if you allow it. So let her transformation be a reminder. Your absence can awaken her strength, her patience, her self-love. But your presence, when it returns, has the power to nurture, to elevate, to reinforce the growth she has built. And perhaps this is the deepest lesson of all, that love is not about possession or dependence, but about mutual transformation. About two people who, through presence and absence, through closeness and distance, become more than they were before. Her transformation is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a stronger, deeper, more conscious connection. Because true love is not static. It evolves. It grows. It transforms, just as she has in your absence. Absence paradoxically brings closeness. Because it is in the emptiness that we measure the value of what fulfills us. It is not absence that kills love, but forgetfulness. So remember this. If a woman thinks of you when you are not there, it means your essence continues to live within her. And now I ask you this. When you are absent, what do you leave behind?